Can you just explain it like I'm five?
Do I pay a different tax rate if I freelance on the side?
You don't pay a different rate, but it happens differently. So I mentioned before when we talked about FICA that half is paid by the employer and half is paid by you, the employee. When you're self employed, you're both the employer and the employee. So you pay both halves of that. And that's what we call self employment tax. Okay. So when you hear the term self employment tax, it's really the same thing as payroll taxes. It's the exact same amount. It's going to the exact same place. It's still funding FICA. It's still funding Social Security and Medicare and unemployment, which we didn't really mention before, but federal and state unemployment programs. So it's the exact same amount. It's just you're not paying yourself a paycheck necessarily. So it's not being withheld all the time. So you end up paying it either through the year via estimated payments or all at the end on the tax return. They just calculate your total self employment tax and it gets tacked
Which is
on.
sometimes a hard pill to swallow for people who own their own business and haven't gotten to a certain size, or you're
Hmm.
freelancing and doing something on the side. Is you've effectively got 15% that you've got to pay
Yep.
as a self-employment tax that the government says because you're not paying payroll taxes between you and your company,
Hmm.
we're going to tax you 15%. And because it's called a self-employment tax, for many entrepreneurs, it feels like a penalty tax,
Right.
but it's not.
But it's not. It all comes out to be the same at the end of the day. And the reason I say that is because you also, as a self employed person who's, you're just running your own small business, you get to deduct half of your self employment taxes. So just the same as, if I worked for McDonald's and they were paying me a paycheck and they were paying half of my payroll taxes, half of my FICA and everything, they get to deduct that on their tax return. McDonald's does. So when you're your own boss, you still get to deduct the employer portion. So it's not a direct offset because it's just a deduction rather than a credit, which I can
Sure.
explain if you want. Um, but it does help. So basically, you're not paying any higher tax than you would be really in any other situation. It just psychologically feels a lot different. And it also feels different because it's on your 1040 and nothing really offsets self employment tax. Your income, your total gross income can be negative for the year. That's still not going to get you out of the self employment taxes if you had self employment
Mm.
earnings. Nothing really counters that tax. It's very difficult to get out of. You can't get out of it, basically. So that's the other thing I think that makes it feel like you're being penalized is that you have this huge chunk that just gets tacked onto that bill on your 1040 rather than on a paycheck. It's money you never saw and never had.
Can you just explain it like I'm five?